Hello, Das, Joe, Dr. Nick. We are back at one of my favourite locations, which, to be honest, is anywhere by the beach, Joe.
Oh, we are so lucky in Australia. Our beaches are glorious and compared to the rest of the world, very clean. It's the collective junk, plastic and rubbish that is polluting our oceans and sea life.
Well, today is all about making the right choices for the planet, and that starts at home. We're going to look at ways to create zero waste from the kitchen to the carport.
Heidi has some sustainable ways to dispose of those hard-to-get-rid-of items. Plus, we reveal the latest menace being dumped across Australia.
And, Joe, we get a recycling refresher from a sustainability expert and find out where soft plastic recycling is currently at in Australia.
And we meet just some of the kids who benefit from the Good Friday appeal. So it's only a week to go now.
And that means it is almost Easter and so many of us head away. And there's a real shift now towards sustainable travel.
And, Jack, global tourism is one of the world's biggest industries, but when you think about it, one of the biggest causes of global pollution at the same time. And I've got fond memories of being in Hawaii with you,
Yes.
Joe, and seeing you and Rachel Finch consciously go about giving back to the local community in Hawaii.
Yes, we went weeding in the mangroves and I remember it felt so great to do something proactive where you could see instant results. So I can very much vouch for the recent surge in ecotourism.
Well, like you, Joe, many people want more from their breaks and they're seeking out greener holidays that reduce the negative impact on environments and communities. And the great thing is that this is encouraging industry to look at more sustainable options. So it's a win all round.
And the smallest things count, you know, it's hanging up the towels so that they're not washed daily or not using those little mini shampoo and body wash bottles, those plastic, you don't need them.
Because I think a lot of us don't think about the mess and the rubbish we leave behind when we go on holiday. But one Melbourne entrepreneur is on a mission to change all that and create more sustainable tourism. Whether you're staying at a 5-star luxury resort or a budget-friendly motel, chances are when you go to wash your hands, you'll use one of these. But what happens to these tiny little soaps when we check out? Well, thanks to a recycling plant in Melbourne, these little soaps can go on to make a huge difference.
My job for the last 20 years has been to run a company that specialises in the supply of hotel amenities, shampoos and soaps and various products that you would enjoy in a hotel when you check in. Quite early in my involvement with that in that industry, about 14 years ago, I started to understand the scale of the waste that that industry was contributing to.
As Mike Madalik sought to improve sustainability within his own industry, he learnt that one product in particular was leaving a serious stain on the environment.
Hotel guests had the choice when they were checking into hotels to be able to take their own shampoo and conditioner with them in their luggage, but not many people travel with their own soap. But almost all guests would open that bar of soap that was gifted to them in the hotel room and almost always would leave that bar of soap behind. 80% of the soap that was being discarded from hotels, we could still read the logos on them. So they'd only been used once or twice. Guest checks out, leaves it behind, and the hotel would dispose of that waste soap, which would end up in local landfills.
Luckily, Mike knows a thing or two about soap.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the luxury of 40 years of soap making experience in my family. We've always been a soap manufacturer. So after exploring this, understanding this problem and this waste, we were fortunate enough to have the expertise to be able to invent the process of recycling that soap.
Thanks to Mike's expertise, today hotels across Australia and New Zealand can purchase an annual subscription to Soap Aid, a charity devoted to cleaning up this major waste problem.
Our team collects used soap from all guest rooms, and instead of throwing them away in the rubbish, we put them in a recycling box. And once we have collected enough soap, usually every quarter, we would then book a collection with Soap Aid, and they send someone to collect.
We house our Soap Aid recycling equipment and is operated by an organisation called The Bridge, who support people with disability and that are struggling to find employment. We manually sort the soap and visually inspect the soap We will clean off any foreign bodies that we find. We will remove any packaging that we see.
You have to make sure that it's nothing on it's like a brand new bar.
Then that soap, post-inspection, will be transferred onto our soap recycling line. We break the soap back down into a soap noodle, into a raw material, and then the science of making soap kicks in, which is a combination of getting the moisture of the soap right and the temperature of the soap right, and we stamp and cut that soap into a 100-gram bar of soap at a fraction of the cost of producing a virgin bar of soap.
Over the past 12 years, SoapAid has reprocessed over 300,000 kilograms of hotel soap. But even more significant than the environmental impact is where those recycled bars end up.
Fundamentally, we have two clear pillars within our organisation. One is quite local, quite domestic. We're saving waste from going to local landfills. And the other often is a long way away, which is to deliver that soap to communities in critical need. It's quite a scary thought that 2/3 of the people on this planet still today live without access to adequate sanitation. I'm a father, I've got 3 young kids, and to also learn that there's still 1.5 million children under the age of 5 dying every year of preventable hygiene disease, the issue is significant. They're much bigger than me and you.
To date, over 3 million SoapAid bars have been distributed to disadvantaged communities around the world, alongside essential hygiene education resources.
We've sent a lot of soap to Cambodia, to Uganda. Interestingly, we've distributed over 1 million bars of soap within Australia, targeting a very particular bacterial eye disease called trachoma, which is still endemic in various Indigenous communities. By washing hands and limiting illness and sickness and death, children are able to go to school more, which improves their literacy, improves their longer-term life outcomes. By going to school more, parents are able to go to work more often, as opposed to staying home looking after sick children, which improves their household income, which can help draw communities out of poverty. The crazy thing here is that if we had 1 million bars of soap today to distribute, we would find a home. And if we had another 1 million bars of soap tomorrow, we would have another home for that. So the demand for soap in these communities far outweighs the potential supply. I think the lesson that we can all take away is that we need to redefine what waste is. You look at something as simple as a waste bar of soap, which for years was getting tossed into local landfills. It's a profoundly effective item to be able to save life. All we've done is simply join the dots from hotel to hands.
SoapAid is an amazing global innovation that started right here. And there's another soap product that's giving people right around the world better access to hand hygiene.
Well, if COVID taught us anything, it's the importance of good hand hygiene. Because, you know, it's estimated that around 1 million deaths a year could be prevented if people could just wash their hands. Because in some under-resourced countries, access to just soap and water is really limited.
Yeah. That is an amazing stat, Nick, when you think about it. And a team of UK researchers have developed a product they call Tab Soap, which is fully biodegradable and can be mounted anywhere. Simply tear off the cloth, add water, and you get a soapy lather.
It's so clever. The Tab soap is made from a bamboo-based textile and it's been tossed in a pit latrine without creating any excess waste. It's been trialled in Tanzania to great success. So next stop, the world.
I think to get people to go green, firstly, we have to make it easy for them, right? And we should reward them when they do. And that theory is being proven by a 10-year-old boy who's cleaning up his neighbourhood one street at a time.
27.
Ashton Hansen could be our youngest entrepreneur. At just 10 years of age, he's bred insects for pet shops, grows potatoes, collects acorns to grow on his grandparents' farm, and now he's got his sights set on bottles and cans.
Yeah, I remember finding it. Yeah.
Ashton is an amazing little child who has taken the initiative to do all sorts of things, and once he commits to something, he's dedicated to completing the task and to getting to the end of it. So he's a wonderful little kid.
And a kid with incredible foresight. He's been collecting bottles and cans for recycling since May last year, well before the Victorian government's vending machine initiative kicked off in November.
When we started collecting, I went door knocking and I made a speech at the time, asked if the neighbours would help us. I said that I'll get to know my neighbours better, it'll help the environment and they'll have less rubbish in their bins.
Hi Ashton.
Hello.
While doing his bit for the environment is high on the list, there are other benefits.
Well, we have a few reasons. One, because we wanted some more pocket money to buy some more Lego and an air hockey table, and it'll help the environment and clean up our local area.
And like a true entrepreneur, Ashton knows a good thing when he sees it and always has his eye on the bigger prize.
My mum told me about people who collected bottles and cans. So me and my brother said that we wanted to do it and that our goal would be 1,000, but then I said we should do 10,000.
We got quite a few last week, didn't we? 750. Let's put in the numbers for this week. We got 25 here for Daddy.
We've now reached our 10,000 bottles, and so we've achieved our goal. We tallied them up on a spreadsheet. It shows us the total amount, the amount that each family has given us, and the total amount of each week. Since we've got 10,000 bottles and cans, we have $1,000, and that'll make us have enough money to buy an air hockey table, which has taken a long time to come here.
So now the Lego and the air hockey table are within reach, Ashton has one final word.
It's very important to recycle because if we don't, we'll have to cut down more trees and build up landfills around the world, and that's not good for our planet.
Well, it's a great incentive, that one, Joe. Kids love the container deposit scheme. It's a great way to earn a bit of pocket money and help save the planet at the same time.
Yeah, and I think South Australia kicked it off in 1977, Dus. Do you remember that?
I remember it really well, Joe. I grew up in Adelaide and South Australia was known for its recycling. It was 5 cents, even 10 cents a can. So many kids, it was almost like their first job, collecting cans, recycling, earning some money. It was a big deal. And now it's being rolled out across all states around Australia. And Tassie's got its own version of it called Recycle Rewards, about to be launched any day now.
Next up, we find out the status of soft plastic recycling, plus get some help sorting our home recycling after this.
The world is at war with plastics, and whilst recycling is great, it would be even better if we could cut out using plastic altogether. Did you know that we use a staggering 130 kilos of plastic per person each year? And one of the biggest offenders is cling wrap, which motivated a young Aussie couple to come up with a green alternative, which hopes to banish plastic waste to history's rubbish bin for good. Until a couple of years ago, Mornington Peninsula husband and wife, Geordie and Julia Kay, were on two very different career paths.
So Julia is an architect and I'm a winemaker, but I think in both of our industries, we were working really hard to have a pretty low environmental footprint. I was farming organically and making wines naturally, so not using any sort of preservatives or chemicals in the winemaking process, and Julia was designing these sort of beautiful low carbon embodied footprint buildings.
Despite their best environmental efforts, there was one harmful material that remained essential to Geordie and Julia's industries.
I was sort of putting so much energy into the practices I was using, and ultimately you create this beautiful product when you're making wine, and sort of at the last stage of the process, you're wrapping your pallets in plastic pallet wrap, and Julia was using these incredible materials that would show up on the back of a truck to a construction site wrapped in plastic. Like, it just seems like a bizarre and stupid system. Like, if you're an alien watching from another planet, you'd watch this and just go, what are they doing?
Australia puts 150,000 tonnes of stretch wrap and pallet wrap in landfill every year. And we just said, like, imagine if that plastic just disappeared.
Rather than just imagining it, in 2020, Geordie and Julia left their industries behind to launch the world's first certified compostable cling wrap. And the key ingredient might surprise you.
So currently we work with a company, it's a US company that takes potato waste from making things sort of like potato chips and hash browns. And that goes through a series of processes where it takes the waste through sort of filtration and tanks and fermentation, and the output is little pellets that look and feel exactly like plastic, except for all it is potato waste.
And so we mix that up and then put that into our extruder, which kind of heats those pellets up, makes it into like a honey-like texture, which then gets squished down into a film and rolled onto a roll, and that's how cling wrap's made. So Great Wrap is pretty much exactly like conventional cling wrap, apart from the fact that at its end of use, you can walk out into your backyard and throw it in your compost bin and it will leave nothing behind, which is pretty awesome, which you can then use to go and like plant your beautiful veggie garden and do things like that. The other great thing is that it's made from food waste as well, so it's kind of like this closed circle.
Before the launch of Great Wrap, the most sustainable option available was biodegradable cling wrap. And while this might sound positive, it's not nearly as eco-friendly as it seems.
Essentially, biodegradable as a term means that it's still made from petroleum plastic. It has an organic additive so that when it's exposed to sunlight and moisture, it'll break down at a really rapid rate, which is fantastic. But the problem is that it breaks down into just tiny little bits of plastic rather than completely disappear. I think it's why it's really important in Australia that we're actually starting to phase out those products. Simply by having a compostable cling wrap in your kitchen, like Great Wrap, really highlights something much bigger. And we want people to kind of talk about the importance of composting and sort of the culture that we can build around that in Australia, because there's a whole bunch of other products there that really can only be solved by some sort of single-use compostable alternative.
Through online sales, Geordie and Julia have already prevented over 1 million metres of plastic from entering landfill, catching the attention of many big businesses.
It feels amazing to see the reaction that we've seen from supermarkets. Like, they're very excited to get a product like this, which is just, for us, you know, you relax a little bit about the future when you see moves like this happening. I don't think cling wrap is where we end, obviously. We've got a huge vision for the amount of products we plan to release in the years coming. But I think we are really excited to continue to develop our formula just so that we're optimising like waste as an opportunity rather than a problem.
Pretty disappointing story, Jack, when you think about the collapse of Australia's soft plastic recycling literally overnight. It felt like a pretty important initiative to me.
Yeah, I agree, but there is some good news. 12 supermarkets across Victoria are now trialling in-store recycling of scrunchable plastic packaging. And in New South Wales and Adelaide, they're trialling curbside collection of soft plastic. So it's a bit of a watch this space at the moment.
And Jack, it's brilliant the amount of things we can recycle these days. The obvious things like our batteries and our mobile phones, but even stuff like those soft plastic pots that are in gardens everywhere. You can literally take them back to your hardware store and recycle them any day.
A good tip. And speaking of batteries, a global team led by researchers from RMIT has developed a water-based electric car battery. So it's recyclable. It doesn't catch fire as much as, say, a lithium or a lead battery, and it's environmentally friendly. So hats off to our Aussie researchers.
Jack, I generally think people want to do the right thing most of the time, but I don't know about you, but it can get complicated at times. What goes in which particular bin? What are the rules when it comes to recycling certain things? So for a bit of a recycling refresher, let's check in with someone who knows a lot about sustainability, Lottie Dalziel.
When it comes to curbside recycling, it turns out that 15% of Australians put the wrong thing in the wrong bin. So today I'm going to talk through a couple of the most common misconceptions when it comes to your curbside recycling. Single-use coffee cups cannot go into your curbside recycling bin. The reason why is that there is a lining of plastic in here, which means that your coffee doesn't seep through to your hands, but it means that the curbside recycling bin doesn't want it. The other thing is the lids. They're too small and they're often made from polystyrene, which we don't want to be putting into your curbside recycling bin. Now, when it comes to fires that unfortunately are happening way too often, not only in your rubbish trucks on the road, but also in recycling facilities, the leading cause of these is actually batteries. So we want to keep them out of all of your household bins, and you need to dispose of them responsibly, whether that be with your council, whether it be with Aldi, or also Officeworks also have battery drop-off points. So in really devastating news for a lot of you out there, Tetra Paks, generally speaking, can't be curbside recycled. These are the packets that will often have your long life milks in them. The reason why is that these walls are actually lined with not one, but 6 different layers. Each layer is a different material. There's aluminium, plastic, and paper. This means that the paper recyclers don't want them, the aluminium recyclers don't want them either, and neither do the plastic recyclers. So you need to put these ones in your landfill bin. When it comes to recycling at home, you really need to think about the size rule. And what I like to do is I like to get out some kind of card of some description, and anything that's smaller than a card can't go into your recycling bin. So simply pop them on top, and then I can see that these bottle top lids are way too small to go into your curbside recycling bin, as is the same with little bread tags, the soy sauce fishies, and coffee pods. A question that I get asked pretty much daily is how clean does your recycling need to be to go in the bin? Now, you don't need to run a whole dishwasher load filled with all of your rubbish, but I do like to give everything a little bit of a rinse just so that it's not as dirty as something like this. So remove all of that bolognese and all of that old Thai food from your takeaway containers before putting them into your recycling bin. So you've probably seen in your latest online shopping deliveries all of these little peanuts that are appearing. Now, it's actually a really common misconception that these are actually made from polystyrene, but they're actually made from corn. We call these corn peanuts, and they're actually biodegradable. So you could even eat them if you wanted to. But the best way to dispose of them isn't by putting them in your recycling bin, but you can actually put them in your garden, or you can even dissolve them in water. My favourite way to get rid of these is actually by putting them on my garden or putting them into my compost bin. But if you don't have one of those, then just dissolving them in your sink with lots of water is a really great way to get rid of them. So many people do the right thing when it comes to recycling, but they fall and they trip at the final hurdle, and that is by bagging up their recycling. This household has sorted everything. They put it all into a plastic bag though, and if this plastic bag were to go into this recycling bin, at the recycling facilities, they would just see it as trash and it would just go straight to landfill. So what you need to do with this is just empty it out and leave it all loose in your recycling bin. So there are just a couple of different tips when it comes to recycling at home, but the biggest thing that you need to do is actually check with your local council, because every single council in Australia recycles differently, so they should be your shining light when it comes to recycling in your home.
I was shocked to learn that only 42% of Australian household waste is recycled. And while I reckon most of us do our best, there's simply some stuff that we don't know what to do with or what colour bins to dump it in. So here's some tips for disposing some of those challenging household items. Clothing and textiles can be recycled through companies like Apparel, so your torn t-shirt or cheap skirt doesn't end up as part of the 100,000 tonnes of clothing going to the tip each year. Worn-out sports shoes can be dropped off at one of Tread Lightly's collection sites located around the country to be turned into rubber flooring and playground underlay. Drop off pens, computers, mobile phones and printer cartridges at any Officeworks for recycling, and take your used batteries to a B-Cycle drop-off point. Some are located in local supermarkets. The RecycleMate app and the Recycling Near You website can help you find local recycling options for bigger items like mattresses and kids' car seats. So before you throw those stinky running shoes in the bin, ask yourself, is there a second life in these soles?
The biggest beauty buzzword right now is ingestible beauty. In fact, collagen and hyaluronic acid have become rock stars in their own right. Well, at least in my world anyway. The Nutrilife Beauty Collagen Plus 7-in-1 combines 7 key beauty supporting ingredients in one great flavour tasting powder. This powerful combo is comprised of a high-strength hydrolyzed collagen to support skin health, elasticity and firmness, plus 4 powerful antioxidants, zinc, vitamin A, vitamin E and nicotinamide. Rounding out the ingredients, and a special shout out here goes to hyaluronic acid that supports our skin hydration and is key for that youthful glow. All you need to do is mix 1 metric tablespoon in 150 mils of water. Just take it with your food once a day, anytime that suits you. We are all time poor. We're juggling work, schedules, kids, and everything else, which often means beauty takes a backseat. So if a beauty supplement fits into your busy life, well, for me, that's a win-win.
Thanks to Jade for some liquid beauty in a glass. Now, Jack, here's one left of centre for you. It is a liquid with some magical properties, but we don't talk about it much. Saliva.
Well, I know why we don't talk about it, but maybe saliva's got a bit of a bad rap because it interacts with our teeth, it helps us eat, and it helps us speak, Jo. And it's 99% water.
And now it turns out there's a lot more to the value of saliva and actually our enjoyment of life, mainly taste and flavour.
Well, here was our taste buds getting all the credit, Jo.
That's right. And here's the health kicker. By understanding the role of saliva, scientists are hoping that they can develop healthier foods that have less salt, less sugar and less fat, but are just as tasty.
Well, Jo, I love pizza as much as the next one, but I also want food that's healthy and easy on the budget. So here's Anna, the urban nana, with how to turn scraps into savings.
Food waste is a massive problem in Australia, with around 7,500 tonnes being discarded every year. That equates to about 4 kilos per household per week. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm Anna the Urban Nana, and I'm here to show you how we can use scraptastic cooking to make the most out of everything and save you some money. Scraptastic cooking means using every part of the food that you buy in one way or another. One of my favourite foods to get scraptastic with is celery. Rather than buying stuff wrapped in plastic, I prefer to use the whole bunch. So try to buy your celery new, and when you get home, wrap it in a damp tea towel and pop it in the fridge. The main reason people will stop eating celery from the fridge is because it's gone a bit wibbly. Storing it cut in containers wrapped in paper towel or a tea towel will mean it stays crunchy for weeks. And if you've got the space in the door of your fridge, just pop the ribs into a vase and they'll stay there crunchy for up to a month. A common misconception is that the leaves of celery aren't edible, but in fact that's where a heap of the flavour is. So rather than tossing them, consider using them as a salad green, adding to a pesto or green smoothie, or even dehydrating them so you've got a crunchy celery flavour to add to dips, soups and stir fries. If you become really fond of eating celery greens, why not save the base of the celery, pop it in a little dish, and it'll regrow leaves within a few weeks. If there are any other pieces of the celery that you think you won't eat fresh or dehydrated, pop it into a container in the freezer with all your other veggie scraps, and once it's full, whack it in a pot, fill it with water, brew for a few hours, and you've got delicious homemade stock. This bunch of spring onions may look familiar to you. Most people will look at that and think they have to throw it away, but you don't. Spring onion, when stored properly, can stay crisp and crunchy for weeks. One of the methods of keeping spring onion crunchy is to simply wrap it in a damp tea towel and pop it in the fridge. Another option is to pop them into a vase just like they were a bunch of flowers and keep that in the fridge door. Spring onions will reshoot very readily if you just pop the bases into a little bowl of water. This one was cut 2 days ago and you can already see the amount of growth it's had. One of the coolest things I like to do with a big healthy bunch of spring onions is to shallow fry their roots until they turn all crispy, and I can use them as toppers on any yum bowl or sushi dishes. And finally, if you want things chopped and ready to go, chop your spring onions, wrap them in a damp towel and keep them in a container in the fridge. They'll stay crunchy for weeks. Most vegetables have many more usable parts than we think. So rather than throwing out scraps, reimagine them and see how else you might be able to use them.
At least 1 in 10 Australians have experienced an anxiety-related condition. If you are one of these people, you will know how it can affect our everyday life. When it comes to improving mental well-being, it's as individual as we are. That said, some general self-care tips include staying hydrated, regular exercise, relaxing activities like reading or meditation, and of course, making sleep a part of your routine. Support from supplementation may also be an option. Nature's own mental wellbeing range aims to assist the mind and body. There is a product for various need states, including memory and energy, mood balance, and sleep support. Heroing the range is Nature's own mild anxiety ashwagandha. This herb, originating from a small shrub with yellow flowers, assists with relieving symptoms of mild anxiety. No one is exempt from a busy life that may cause mild anxiety at times, but you don't have to just simply deal with it. Help is available, you just need to know where to look.
Well, as Darcy said there, we're a week away from Easter, which means it's time to get behind the Good Friday appeal for the Royal Children's Hospital.
Yeah, and the work that the RCH does cannot be overstated. 26 years ago, my third baby, Olivia, nearly died of whooping cough. And she's only alive today because of the incredible work they do at that hospital.
Well, you know, my daughter is here today because of the Children's Hospital. Also, she's been a patient of theirs pretty much her entire life. She would not be here without their incredible care. And I would say, Nick, thousands and thousands of families would say the same. Because, in fact, the Good Friday appeal first began in 1931 when a group of sports journos got together and put on a fundraising footy game for sick kids. And fast forward to last year's event where they raised a record $23 million.
$23 million. And the money that's raised will bring life-changing benefits to sick kids and their families, which is what this appeal is all about. You know, the real people that we can all help this Easter.
Emily's very big into her soccer and recently cricket as well. And she's just started playing underwater hockey, which is a sport that Lucas and I have been playing for a while.
Oh, no. When Em was 3.5, we kind of took her off to the paediatrician. We had some concerns. Water would come out her nose. She would often have falls. She would catch one of her legs, just not lifted up high enough. And progressively, her swallow changed and her speech changed and her balance changed. So walking in a straight line was difficult. Walking on her tippy toes and her heels were difficult. And there came just this point where the neurological symptoms stacked up and they decided to scan her. So Emily lives with a tumour called a ganglioma. It's in her brainstem. The difficult part about it being in her brainstem is everything that we do in terms of breathing, heart rate, things that make us survive as a person, it sits right there.
It's in a place in the brainstem where they can't just take it out. Anywhere else they could just excise it and be done with it for the most part, but where it is, they can't take it away. Essentially,
if the doctors were to go in and try and take this out, they wouldn't know if they were taking healthy brain tissue, if they were taking tumours, because the margins are really blurry, and the risk with that is that they will actually kill her.
I guess that we have been through a lot with Emily. It's always been a lot of hard decisions to make and a lot of treatments and whatnot, but we have that reassurance and that confidence that it's the best possible choice for that time with her journey.
5, 6.
A lot of trust. There's a lot of trust with Emily's doctors and her team.
When you think about teams, you think about the doctors and the nurses, but Emily's team is far wider than that in terms of there's a social worker and there's a dietitian, and we have often engaged with the speech therapy team also at the Children's. And there's also the child life therapists, which are a really important part of Em's treating team, and Em's beads that she does to represent every procedure is massive.
So this is my beaded journey. Every time I have a procedure, I add a bead. That one's a finger prick. That one's a blood transfusion.
What was this one?
This one was my first craniotomy, so brain surgery.
So it's part of documenting Em's journey. It's a part of being able to represent the things that she's been through. And so there are 64 cream beads because she's had 64 different doses of chemotherapy. And there's more than 25 yellow beads, but the yellow beads are procedures, and there's 25 MRI yellow beads on there. So it's a way of us, not us, Emily, tracking and having a visual representation.
And also a great way to measure Dad.
It's a great way to measure Dad, yes, because it's taller than Dad. You never want to have to utilise the Royal Children's. You never want your child to be there. But if they have to be there, they have the most amazing teams to support and wrap around you. And the Good Friday appeal is our opportunity to be able to say thank you, but also as a community, make sure we support the amazing work they do. It helps fund research, it helps fund technology and equipment. And we've used all of those things, and that would not be possible without people donating through the Good Friday appeal.
Emily would not be here without the Royal Children's Hospital. Without any hesitation or that, she wouldn't be here without what they've done for her. And they do the same thing for so many kids at all times. One of my best memories of Emily in the hospital was when she finished her first protocol and she walked down through all the nurses and got to the end and rang the bell and she finished her first protocol. That was very powerful for me. So yes, they're there for the sad times, but also for the good times too.
Living a full life can leave its mark on our bodies. No matter how proactive we are with our health, mild joint pain and stiffness may force us to reduce activity levels or stop certain movements completely. Which is a problem because lowered mobility has a knock-on effect to other areas of our health, including quality of life. Unlike other natural or pharmaceutical treatment options, EpiJoint contains the exclusive ingredient Epitalis. This plant seed oil extract is high in fatty acids to reduce mild joint pain and inflammation. Epitalis also helps to maintain joint cartilage health and relieve mild osteoarthritis symptoms. In clinical research, patients taking a daily dose of Epitalis experienced an approximate reduction of 50% in mild joint pain, while their quality of life scores improved by over 80%. Whether it's a stroll in the park or something more extreme like barefoot water skiing, we all deserve the freedom to move our bodies how we feel in the many wonderful ways the world has to offer.
March 30 is Zero Waste Day. We've all got to do our bit for the planet. No excuses, Das. And there are a couple of simple ways to do that.
Well, I think we can start, Jack, with single-use cling wrap. And most shops will now accept people bringing their own jar or tub or container to be able to be recycled. And you can try beeswax products as well if you haven't before.
For me, it's actually switching to a pot of tea. I love tea. I don't drink coffee, as you know. So instead of your tea bag, you can do your teapot. And the added bonus of that is you actually get to sit, have a pot of tea with your teacup and enjoy it.
And Jack, the big game changer in our house has been the compost bins that the council now provide. Those little green bins you fill up with your food waste. I reckon that's reduced our waste in our half by at least 50%.
Another way to do it is use leftovers in things like wraps. So here's Zoe with one of the best.
You'll be hard-pressed to find a fridge that doesn't contain chicken breast. It's lean and lends itself to recipes both day and night, which is exactly when you're going to want my cumin chicken and salsa wraps all day, every day. I'm going to keep the flavours light and refreshing, sticking to just a couple of ingredients in the chicken marinade. Cumin is the standout. It has the strength to measure up to meats and a little goes a long way. The good thing about cooking with chicken is it's a blank canvas, but you still get the boost of nutrients. Key to a healthy, balanced lifestyle. Putting the marinated chicken aside for about 15 minutes, now it's time to start on the salsa. Tomato, onion, coriander and corn is such a delight of flavour and colour. You know the saying, eat the rainbow. The dressing I'm making seems like a little bit of a conflict in a bowl. The sour citrus flavour of the lime and the super sweetness of the honey. In truth, it's a magic combo. I'm going to give the salsa ingredients a chance to marry together while I cook the chicken. A griddle pan allows for a more even heat distribution. 4 to 5 minutes each side will do the trick. Time for the best part, bringing all the elements together. This recipe is filling, but it doesn't leave you feeling like you've overdone it. One of my favourite parts of this job, lunchtime. Get Nourish is brought to you by Swiss Wellness. Support strong, healthy bones and help maintain bone mineralisation with Swiss Ultiboost Vitamin K2.
You know, these space advances and travel, it's exciting, right? But is there nowhere humans can go that doesn't leave rubbish? And now we have space trash?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Joe, because, of course, satellite spacecraft, they're mostly made of aluminium. And when they break up, they leave little bits of metal up in orbit for many, many years. So scientists have been looking for alternatives.
Turns out they might have come up with one as well, Dr. Nick. Japan and NASA have just recently announced a partnership where they're going to build the first ever wooden satellite.
Yeah, wooden. I mean, the Lignasat probe is fully biodegradable in an attempt to make spacecraft more sustainable. And the amazing thing is its launch is scheduled for later this year. Incredible.
So, Dr. Nick, the big question I want to know is, does space junk actually come back down to Earth?
Well, it's a great question, Jack. And actually, Skylab, the USA mission, broke up in 1979 over Western Australia. And lots of the locals rushed out to gather the souvenirs. But you know what? The officials were not very impressed. So they issued NASA with a fine for $400 for littering.
And that $400 would have put a big dent in NASA's budget.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
but you know what? They never paid it.
Didn't they? We're going to go and collect that with interest. But the new regulations are out. The satellite operators are obliged to clean up their space trash within 25 years, although only 60% so far have complied. Yeah. So watch this space, team. Thank you very much. That's all we've got time for. Great to spend the day on the House of Wellness with Joe Stanley, Jacqui and Dr. Nick, as always.
Make sure you check out House of Wellness Radio with Gerald Quigley and Luke Hines this Sunday.
And check out our Autumn Gloss magazine with celebrity personal trainer Jono Castagna on the cover.
Thanks as always to our friends at Chemist Warehouse. Bye for now.